Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Canary Room. Well, it's been a while, but we're back in the room for today's episode. Before we get into the show today, a couple of thank yous, couple of shout outs. Firstly, a huge thank you to Mike Burling. Mike, your donations to the channel, very, very much appreciated, mate. And a shout out on behalf of Mike as well. This gentleman, you know who you are. Has supplied Mike with some top quality borders for the season ahead. So all of our friends who watch the show down under, very best of luck with your breeding season. I know it's just getting underway now, so very best of luck with that. And as I say, you know who you are, but well done for sorting Mike out. Quick shout out as well for another friend of the show, Rob Elkin. Rob, speedy recovery. I hope today's show gives you something to enjoy while you are convalescing. So it has been a while. We've been here, there and everywhere on the road, haven't we? Incredible feedback, which I'm super grateful for. It's just a quick one today, but we will catch up with, of course, the Fifes. We'll catch up with the natives as well. Plenty going on with the natives. We'll have new Colour Corner. And, well, it wouldn't be the Canary Room, would it, without the Norwich notebook as well. So, as always, grab yourself a cuppa, sit back, and enjoy the show. We are coming towards the end of August now, and the birds are very much in a moult still. So not a great deal to see with the birds at the moment, although many fanciers will tell you it's one of those times of years where, you know, we look and we keep our fingers crossed. Do the birds turn out looking as good as they did when they went into the moult, or do they turn into something completely different? You will, week to week in the moult, you know, you'll come into the room one time and think, got a shed of world beaters here, and you'll come in the next week and think, where have they all gone? And that's an inevitability about the moult. The young Fifes, the majority of them are in pairs over here. I've still got some over there and some just behind the camera as well. So overall assessment of the season, it ended probably sooner than I imagined, given that really rush of hot weather, but we've still got some really good numbers, Fife-wise. And what's really important is we've got some incredible quality as well. So we've got some birds that will undoubtedly make the show team across the colours. And as we really planned for the moult, you know, key things really, from the 1st of August, my lighting changes and my lighting goes to winter lighting. And that sees me reducing the lighting to around about 8.5 hours a day. So from 14 down to about 8.5. I don't black the windows out. The Canary Room's relatively well sheltered anyway, so it's got quite a lot of shade on it. And the birds, you know, just those that weren't molting suddenly dropped into a moult. Important during the moult that we, that we keep on top of cleanliness. So the cages are cleaned every couple of weeks. They're deep cleaned every alternate 2 weeks, so they get a good wash through. And then I'm giving the birds, every time I clean them, just a sprinkling, as we can see here, of oyster shell grit on the cage floor, just to keep them active. And I'll also give them a little bit of conditioned seed as well. Egg food wise, they're getting that about 2 to 3 times a week at the moment. I'll give them the occasional tidbits, the occasional green food, largely broccoli as well. They seem to enjoy that, and apple too. So bit of spraying, plenty of baths, and really it's a patience game. Over the course of the coming weeks, the Canary Room is going to focus on different subject areas. So today really is the end of the moult, and what we'll look to do over the next episode is look at show training. Now, I have run some of the birds in show cages to have a look at them, but I've got a finite amount of time, so I'm not going to train all of the birds. I'm really waiting to see those birds that I think have got the greatest show potential and focus my energies and efforts on those. Now, some of those birds, you know, I've got an idea of already. Some will kind of come from nowhere. It happens every year. You know, you pull a bird out of the flight cages, you have a look at them and you think, Where's that one come from? But it's always an interesting part of the season. That so show training will be on a future episode. One of the things that we're going to look at with the Fifes today, though, is how our bird that we bought in, the fawn hen, got on, and some of her young. Many of you who watch the show regularly will know we bought the fawn hen in late last year. Delighted to get her in as a kind of reinvigoration of the cinnamon line. Cinnamon being, of course, the only colour special I haven't won yet as a champion. I've had second on a couple of occasions. We've got some really, really nice birds from her this year. We've got a couple of allied birds, which will be carriers. We've bred a number of fawns from it. Now, unfortunately, one of our first fawns, which was Bird of the Week, many weeks ago, we lost during the molt. Just went downhill, couldn't save it. So that sadly is no longer with us, but there are, as we'll see here, two very nice, shapely looking fawns from her final round that were reared under a gap mosaic. So we'll see, they've got a long way to go yet, these birds. We'll see how they go. There's a couple of allied to white birds, as I've already mentioned, and then there's some dark birds as well. Now the dark birds, a couple look like hens, maybe one's a cock, which will be a carrier. So all in, some really nice young out of that pair. And the cock bird, who I paired her with, has also bred some really nice birds with one of the other cinnamon hens that he was with. So the foundations, it looks set for next year with the cinnamon line. And this time of year, many fanciers, and I include myself in that, as well as the show training and looking forward to the show season, thoughts inevitably turn to next year. So I will be doing things slightly different, I think, for next year in the Canary Room. I've been inspired. My visits to Bernard Williams, my visits to Nick and Anna-Lane Barrett, and of course my visits to Keith Ferry. Just seeing all of those individuals, talking birds with them, and really thinking about taking the stud forward. So more of that in future episodes. While we're on the Fifes, let's jump around a little bit. Let's go to this week's Bird of the Week. Well, this week's Bird of the Week is a Fife, and it is one of our early bred birds. It's not got too far to go now as it comes through the molt. It's a heavily variegated green buff cock. It's potentially one of the best green buff cocks I think I've ever bred. I think sort of size-wise, type-wise, it's everything I'm looking for in a green buff cock. Interesting thing, it will more than likely make the show team, although I don't remember ever a heavily variegated green buff cock winning anything more than a colour special, so we'll see. I'm not saying it will win a colour special, but it's a nice bird, this. It's well up on its legs, it's short, it's got roundness, it's got a really nice free neck, it's got all of the things that we're looking for a show bird. So there it is, ladies and gents, that is this week's Bird of the Week. Well, it's been a really good season with the natives, and I'm really sort of happy with that. And as with the Fifes and the rest of the Canaries in the room, it's very much about what the future looks like with the natives and what birds will stay and what birds I'll move on. I caught one of the young siskins up earlier on. It's a mutation. I think it's an Isabel. And I caught it up. We'll have a little look at it in the show cage here. Thing of real beauty, to be honest. First year I've successfully bred siskins, so really, really happy with that. The red poles, again, we can take a little look at a pied red pole here. This one is deep in the molt. So it's still got some way to go on it, but this little pied red pole looks like it might be a useful addition. I will retain a number of pied red poles for next year. I'll retain a number of red poles for next year. With regards to the other natives, well, it's still to be decided. Still to be decided what stays and what goes. What's more than likely to stay will be our bullfinches. You can see I've managed to capture some of the bullfinches here. You'll see at the back of the cage, actually, it looks a little bit mucky, and that is blackberry. One of the things that I've been doing is it's a good time of year to get sort of nature's harvest, so to give that to all of the birds, really. Blackberry, though, I'll only give to the bullfinches. You can see they made a right mess of it. Important, if you can get wild food, to get it. Make sure you know what you're picking, though, and make sure that it's from a really clean environment. You don't want to give birds, green wild food that could have been sprayed or is, contaminated in any way. So it's important, really, that we focus on that. If you're not able to get wild food for the birds, don't worry about it. I feed the birds millet spray, which they will peck on for hours, and we can see them enjoying it here, and they'll enjoy that. I'll give them peas, petit pois. I'll give them broccoli. I'll give them watercress, all of which are available from the supermarket. So realistically, it's if you can't get wild seed, don't worry. If you can, fantastic, but make sure it's from a sustainable source. With the bullfinches, I will be giving them rowan berries. I've got a mountain ash outside, but at the moment those berries aren't quite ripe, so I'll wait for them to ripen, and I'll take a small harvest, leaving some, of course, for the wild birds as well. So that's the bullfinches, the siskins, the redpolls. Well, let's have a little look at those in slow motion. Really good season with the redpolls this year. It's given me all of the stock that I need to pull from for future years, which is certainly for next year, which is brilliant. And the same is true with the Fife canaries as well. So there won't be any additional Fifes coming into the room this year. So that's the native diaries. Well, it's from natives to the Norwich notebook. Well, on the Norwich notebook today, just a real catch-up with them. You can see they're sort of pecking away. I put some conditioned seed in earlier on for them, so I had in my mind when I did it to Keith Ferry telling me he likes his birds like chickens, pecking around, keeping them interested, keeping them moving. You can see they're starting to take a colour on as well, which is great. I'm using the peppering method that Keith showed us in the last episode. I'm not making up huge batches of coloured egg food for them at the moment, so I'm just peppering the egg food that they've got, but they've taken a colour nice. Still undecided as to whether I will show them or not this year. They are an important part of the Canary Room moving forward. I am hoping to bring a couple of pairs in. The moult has been difficult for some of the flighted birds in the Canary Room, the flighted Norwich birds particularly. The Fifes have been fine. So it's been a difficult moult for some of them. A couple, unfortunately, haven't made it. But I like what's coming through, and I think at this stage, that sort of, I've got numbers, they're bred in my environment. Those are all things to consider. And, at this time of the year, whether it's Norwich, whether it's Fifes, whether it's natives, we start to think ahead for next year and what next year might look like. And as I've said, the natives, I'm kind of pretty much where I need to be. I'm room for another goldfinch cock, I think, but outside of that, native-wise, I don't see anything coming in. Fife-wise, I've had a good season, numbers-wise. More importantly, the quality and the consistency is there, so there are quality birds of consistent type. So that line is really breeding true now, which is good. It's taken me a couple of years to get it back up to a place I want it to be, but it's there now. So I won't be bringing anything in, touch wood, unless I lose a couple of critical birds. But I don't see that happening. He says, crossing fingers and toes and everything else. Norwich is going to be slightly different. I am in the process of building a stud, and that's why I'm uncertain about showing this year. I will go to a Norwich show, so I'll have a look at what's on the bench. You know, one of the greatest ways of determining the progress that you've made is to put your birds up against others. Well, I may do that, I may not. I'm not 100% certain. I've obviously got very lucky to spend a lot of time in the company of Keith and see his birds at different times of the year and see how they develop, and you know, I can bring back to my own birds and have a look and see the things that I need to improve. I may just let them overwinter, get them fit, get them going, and see where we end up there. It's now time for, well, new colour corner, of course. Well, the new colours are actually not in the Canary Room. They're in a separate room at the moment in the wire cages, and the reason for that is they're being colour-fed Caraphil red. Now, the Norwich are being colour-fed Caraphil orange. In terms of the cage configuration, the Norwich are the sort of, they're not the bottom cage, but they're the lowest cage. There's no fifes underneath them. In fact, the only sort of element of the show team are 2 or 3 cages above them. So that idea that they could be cross-contaminated, hopefully I've restricted to a minimum. It's a difficult balance, that though, because of course colour feeding a fife will spoil it, it'll debar it from exhibition. So we need to make sure that we haven't done that. The new colours, again, good season with them. Decent number of grey wings. Some nicer gats coming through now, starting to colour up as well. So all in all, with the new colours, good season. They will remain next year. I'll certainly keep the grey wings. I'm not sure about the others at the moment. I'm sort of trying, as I've been thinking and planning ahead for next year. I'm trying to ensure that I've got, you know, a competitive number of Norwich to breed from, a competitive number of Fife to breed from, and you know, the grey wings may see me specialise in them for next year. So we'll see, stay tuned, and we'll see what happens there. So new colour corner, really, it's just to catch up with them. They're colouring up nicely. We'll see how they end up. We'll keep fingers, toes and everything else crossed, and we'll finish today's episode with a very quick, very quick to-do list. So our to-do list really at this time of the year for the moult is, you know, it is quite a simple one. The cleanliness, the keeping the cages clean. You can see behind me here, I've got the Fife hens and a couple of over-year cocks. I've got them all in one big flight cage, so I've utilised the space here. I've got all the bullfinches in one big flight cage, so that's 2 meters 20 long, and I've got all of the red poles in one big flight cage. I've got all of the Norwich in a big flight cage, and the siskins and the goldfinches, which I'm not colour feeding, they're all in one big flight cage as well. So at the moment for the to-do list, it's about making sure that we get the birds through the moult with as few losses as possible. Now, you know, we do that by really focusing on our birds, by keeping an eye on them, by making sure there's fresh water, by making sure they've got clean seed. I sieve mine every 2 days. So I'll pour the seed container into a sieve, I'll sieve it off, getting any of the dust, any of the rubbish that's in there away, so they've got a nice clean seed. I will keep an eye on birds. Any birds that I can see are going down, and they'll go down really quickly. You know, I'll take them away, I'll put them in a hospital cage, and I'll do everything I can to bring them back round. Sometimes with success, other times, as with the fawn hen, unfortunately not. The moult, in that sense, is a great leveller. I'm giving oyster shell grit. I'm giving that on the floor of the cages just to get them pecking around, get them moving around. As I say, fresh water daily. They're also getting greens. They're also getting egg food 2-3 times a week. So I'm giving them multivitamins in the water, and I'm also giving them apple cider vinegar as well. So really for the to-do list, it's, you know, don't overstress your birds in the moult. I know a lot of people will, you know, start show training. For me, it's The birds are naturally steady. That steadiness is bred into them. And so I don't really want to be running them into cages, stressing them out. I don't think it does them any good. And the last thing you want is a bird stuck in the moult. It won't finish off. And what we've got to remember with the moult as well is that although to us it might seem visually finished, the birds will still grow, feathers underneath the top feathers right up until sort of October, November time. So we talk about in the moult the need for a hard frost just to finish that feather off. With the way the weather's going at the moment, whether we'll get one or not remains to be seen. So that's our to-do list this week. And that comes to the end of, a quick update back here in the Canary Room. Well, listen, everyone, I hope you've enjoyed today's show. If you have, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, hit the subscribe button. If you're able to, there's a donation button on our homepage. Your donations are massively, massively appreciated. Over the next few months, we've got a number of things in store for you, a number of things planned. We have got a couple more on the road trips. We will go back to Keith Ferry. We've got a trip to go and see Peter Harrison, the Zebra Finch guy. We've got a trip to go and see the old varieties of Donald Skinner Reed. We've got a couple of other trips as well on the cards. More of those as they're confirmed, and assuming that we can get them scheduled in. We will also, as we embark on the show season, look at my approach to show team selection. So what I'm looking for, how I approach the show team when it comes to the fifes, show preparation. And then obviously we will take into some of the shows as well. So I will be exhibiting hopefully at a number of shows this year. I'll be judging a number of shows this year as well. So I'll take you and the camera with me, and we'll go and see the five shows, which hopefully, fingers crossed, will be on this year, having had a year off last year due to COVID. We've got the selection and the plans. I'll talk you all through those for next year as well. Season 5 of the Canary Room. It's already in the planning. We will potentially change things up a little bit. Not sure how. And next week next time out rather, we'll have a look at some of the other young off some of the other fifes that we bred this year. As always, everyone, thanks for watching. Take care.